Matt, what are you seeing right now?
All right, so we've got about 12% in right now, and I want to start big picture. We're going to start with Abigail Spanberger versus Winsome Earle-Sears, this Democrat GOP. Which way will this go? And for the most part, throughout the morning, throughout the evening as we watch this go on, Spanberger's had quite a substantial lead, right? Now, it's very early on. 12% is in, about 55% of voters that have been counted so far. Those are going Spanberger. Now, this is what's interesting, right? A lot of where we're seeing the results come in, a little bit from Northern Virginia, but like we don't have anything right now from, I would say, from Fairfax quite yet. So that's our biggest county up here. But we do have some results in Loudoun, and we have some results as well in Alexandria, Arlington. Just giving you an idea of what it's looking like. At this point, it does look like what we have going on here is, for the most part, Spanberger in front of Sears. But when we go to the lieutenant governor's race, it's about the same. Ghazala Hashmi is following sort of right along step with Spanberger, and John Reed is not doing quite as well there as we go through each one of the counties. But here's where things get a little different. This is where perhaps you're seeing that split ticket voting here. You can see that Jay Jones is still up over Jason Miyares with 17% of the votes coming in, but it's not as quite as big a lead as perhaps we saw earlier. But I want to show you in our area, right, where we are up here, what the difference is. So about 69% of the voters in Fairfax have gone for Jay Jones. Okay, it's an area you're expecting him to do well. But when we go back to Abigail Spanberger and we look at the same area right here, you can see she's got 73%. There seems to be a little bit of dissonance between those two. The split ticket voters seem to be not favoring Jay Jones, and at least they're bringing Ghazala Hashmi with Spanberger, but not so much with Jones. Now, something else we've been talking about, these are all important because as everyone has been talking about, our experts on the panel, it's sort of a temperature check for how America feels right now about the economy, about the Trump administration, all of these things. But there's another important wrinkle that we've been talking about, you've heard Leslie and Lorenzo talk about, and that is the House of Delegates in Virginia. How this goes will determine whether or not Virginia continues on this course towards possibly redistricting its congressional maps. So we don't have a whole lot coming in quite yet. We need to get to about 51% in order for the proposal for the House of Delegates and for the Virginia Senate, for the General Assembly to go forward with redistricting. And some interesting races that seem to be at least called to an extent. This is Marcia Price. She's out of Newport News. This is an important race because she is the one that heads the committee that will be looking over these potential new maps. And of course, Don Scott, also down in Hampton Roads, that's the Speaker of the House of Delegates. Every one of the House of Delegates, all 100 seats are up for grabs. And like you heard folks saying on our panel, if they're able to flip, Democrats are, some of these Northern Virginia red seats, that could really determine what happens next. So I've got my eye on 3 races, and they're important for the reasons I kind of stated, that if these are flipped, this will give Democrats a bigger majority in the House of Delegates that they already have. So this right here is Ian Lovejoy, Elizabeth Guzman. Now, Guzman, several election cycles ago, held this seat. So now she's running against the incumbent, but she also has name recognition. Name recognition is so incredibly important in elections, especially delegate races, because that's all you really have. You don't have as much exposure as the others. Coming down here as we get into Shenandoah at Page County, what you have is Justin Pence, Catherine Reck. This is an open seat. There's no incumbent. It was a Republican seat, but this is one of those races that if Democrats were to take that, that would increase their lead in the House of Delegates. And then the next one I'm looking at right down here, this one is over near Culpeper County. This is Karen Hamilton and Sarah Ratcliffe. Again, this was previously a Republican seat. At this point, Hamilton is sort of holding steady with what we would have expected here. But if Sarah Ratcliffe flips this seat, again, another seat in the House of Delegates that goes towards the General Assembly and this potential redistricting. And I'm just going to give it real quick. This is why this is so important. Texas, they can just decide to redistrict within their General Assembly. In Virginia, this requires basically a constitutional amendment. They have to pass this in this special session they did last week and then pass it again in the upcoming General Assembly regular session. And then if the state of Virginia or Commonwealth of Virginia wants to redistrict, then they can bring it to a referendum. So there's many steps, but if they don't win, Democrats, the House of Delegates, this redistricting plan dies right here on election night. So one last big check right here. We're about 20% in now. Abigail Spanberger with a 17% lead, almost. It keeps flipping as I'm talking. Coming down to about 13% lead over Winsome Earle-Sears. Where are we with the Attorney General race? Jay Jones, much closer, 52% to 47%. So you can see there is this effect that we are starting to see even in our Northern Virginia, which is a notoriously blue area. We're starting to see sort of this split between people who are voting for Ghazala Hashmi and Abigail Spanberger, but perhaps not so frequently voting for Jay Jones. They seem to be going at least for Jason Miyares in that realm. That's what we're kind of seeing on the big board. And then the last thing I want to kind of look at is we're trying to see how has Virginia changed since the 2024 presidential election. So I've got my eyes on some of these, Loudoun County as well as Fairfax, in terms of what does Spanberger's turnout look like compared to Kamala Harris's and vice versa. So we're trying to get an idea of what this will look like in the stretch, because a lot of this could determine what we see coming up in the 2026 midterms. So that's what I'm keeping my eye on. I'll send it back to you guys. We're going to have some other ideas coming up, and I'll keep updating you with the numbers as we go through the night.
Yeah,